This is AmateurLogic, episode 162 for November 15th, 2021. This episode of AmateurLogic is brought to you by MFJ, the world leaders in amateur radio accessories. And by ICOM, perfect for staying in or venturing out to work your favorite bands this winter season. Spice up your ham shack with ICOM's portable IC705. Good evening and welcome to another episode of AmateurLogic. I'm George.
I'm Tommy.
And I'm Mike.
Andy Mill is not with us this week. He's feeling a little under the weather.
Actually, Emil sent me a motivational poster in his absence.
Yeah, Emil got his second vaccine this week, a couple of days ago. He's not feeling so good. So we hope he perks back up soon. Probably will.
Yeah. So the cost compliance officer isn't with us tonight, so we're going to be getting the credit cards out and hitting Amazon.
So it's no holds barred. It's not.
Is there a Hamfest going on tomorrow at all? Anybody know of a Hamfest? We'll let them know about it.
There actually is one somewhere in Mississippi, but I don't remember where it is.
Is it?
Yeah. We always say at the first of the show, if you're watching live, you might want to check out the chat room, AmateurLogic.TV/chat.
Yep. Yes, because if you're watching the live stream and you're not in the chat, you're missing half the fun.
That is true.
And which half of the fun is up to you.
Mike, what has been going on down that direction?
Well, let's see. Since we like to talk about the weather, let's talk about the weather. A week ago, I'm not sure if they're counting it as the official first snowfall of the year, but we had enough snow to cover the ground last week. It didn't last too long. Everything's gone, of course, and we're probably expecting snow in the next few days, so winter's on its way here.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah, we're expecting it to get near freezing here tomorrow night, I think.
Is it? Looks like I'm getting out of here just in time.
Yeah, you are?
I am.
Where are you going, Tommy?
Going to Germany tomorrow. I actually fly out 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah?
Yep.
I was going to say DOS is good.
Yeah.
Well, it should be interesting. So if any of you guys out there watching are in Germany know anything interesting to see near Dusseldorf, let me know. So I have no idea what's around there.
Well, I've been working on transmitters and doing brake jobs on my vehicle this week, so kind of got a few injuries.
From the brakes or from the transmitter?
This one was from the brakes. I got a couple of cuts from the transmitter. It wasn't that bad, but the transmitter's pretty bad. It's 35 years old.
Oh, wow.
It's one of the earliest solid-state AM transmitters that was made. So you can't get a lot of the parts for it. And, it's been patched around pretty good. It doesn't exactly resemble the schematic anymore, so that's been a fun experience.
Did you get it fixed?
I did. I posted on Facebook a picture.
I hadn't been on there much lately.
Well, not just a board out of it. So, yeah, it took a while. I'd never worked on one like that before, and I had to do some digging and ciphering. Mike, there is something new on the horizon out there that you're going to share with us
There
tonight.
sure is. Actually, it's available now, and I haven't managed to get my hands on one yet. But unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard that the Raspberry Pi Zero W has been upgraded to a Raspberry Zero 2W. And it's got an RP3AO, or A0, I should say, custom-built system in a package and designed right by the Raspberry Pi people in the UK. And it's claiming 5 times the performance as the original Raspberry Pi Zero. Now, the only thing I can't figure out is if they're referring to the original Pi Zero or the Zero W. So either way, up to 5 times as fast as the original one is going to be a noticeable improvement, I would think.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one. I'm going to get one and put it on my hotspot, give it a try. Hotspot works great, but rebooting and making some changes to Pi Star are a little bit sluggish. So anyway, I hope that'll speed that up.
You think it'll help us talk faster?
It can't hurt. We're from Mississippi, so we need all the help in that area we can get.
I saw that, Mike. The price went up on it a little bit, but still,
It's a pricey $5 higher, $15 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still worth every penny, though.
Don't tell Emil.
I was kind of hoping that they'd revamp the Raspberry Pi 2. A lot of the projects that I've built with Raspberry Pis don't require wireless or Bluetooth. And I figured if they came up with a replacement for the Pi 2, it would cut the cost down and give you the higher performance. So I'm still hoping that maybe they'll do something like that.
Yeah. Neat. I haven't ordered one yet, but there's a good chance.
You can't hardly find one. I'm actually on the list to be notified at Adafruit when they come in.
Cool.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, I got a package in the mail this week. Well, actually, I think it was from UPS or FedEx. May have been the mail. I'm not sure, but
just know you got one.
I got an email first.
Yeah, I think I know the email you're talking about.
This came from our friends Elliot K1MF and Robert W1CAH. I don't know if they're in the chat room tonight. I hadn't noticed.
I don't know. Robert used to check in on the net a good bit.
Yeah. George and Tommy, please be aware that you have a care package come to you on the predicted date of Wednesday, and he gave us the tracking number. And you know what? It did come on Wednesday, and it's right over there in that box, Tommy. Do you want to see what it is?
Heck yeah. Wow. It's pretty heavy.
It is. Do you have your defensive mechanism with you?
I do. Well, it's taped up pretty good, too.
Yeah, they use Gorilla Tape. And they said if it survived,
wow.
Yeah, I hope it gets here in one piece. It did.
Yeah, it may be the end of the show before I get all the tape cut off of it.
Hermetically sealed.
I received a package this week, actually yesterday, and the box is completely wrapped in plastic. And then they took one of those tape guns and they taped every inch of the cardboard with tape.
Wow.
You may have to cut some of this the unwrapping here because it's taped up pretty doggone good. Whatever's in here is not coming out. I hope he left some air holes so it can breathe.
You might want to sharpen that knife up a little bit before the next fight.
And the knife is sharp too.
Yeah.
That Gorilla Tape's tough stuff, man.
Oh, there's a letter.
Yep. You go ahead and read it?
Yeah.
Dear George and Tommy, or hello George and Tommy. Just thought you two might enjoy a preseason care package of coffee and tea. I know Tommy likes the coffee, and I know you, George, like the tea. So my nephew Robert and I decided upon a care package to get you both warmed up for the season. Enjoy the shows and have been watching since day one, the Katrina episode with Jimmy's Tower. Keep up the great work and enjoy every show posted. Regards, Elliot, K1MF, and Roberts, W1CAH. Thanks, guys. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're right. I do love coffee. Oh, wow. Cinnamon hazelnut. Stu Leonard's fresh roasted coffee. I've never heard of it. Oh, look at all that.
Show it to us.
Oh, yes, that'd help, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And pumpkin spice coffee. I've never heard of Stu Leonard's, but it's interesting. I can't wait to try that out.
That one's been
Autumn
ground.
Harvest Blend.
This one looks like chocolate sugar smacks.
Wow, a bunch of tea, too.
Bigelow's.
Decaffeinated.
Bigelow's tea is the best.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Here, I'm going to pull some up here. You can read them and pull them out.
Bigelow's
Box off.
classic green tea. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. How do you pronounce that, Tommy?
Chamomile.
Chamomile. Cozy chamomile herbal tea. Herbal, not herbal.
Don't drink that before the show or it'll put you to sleep.
Matcha green with turmeric.
Some more. Keep going.
Lavender, whatever you said. Chamomile.
Lavender chamomile.
Yep.
English breakfast tea. That's good stuff.
Now, if we just had some strumpets.
And some black tea decaffeinated.
Wow. Constant comment.
Awesome.
Yeah, the constant comment my wife buys on Amazon all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's awesome, guys. Really appreciate that.
Look at all that. We'll be drinking through the whole winter.
Yeah.
I tell you
Might
what,
not be sleeping for the whole winter.
it may not. Whole beans.
Yeah, I've got a coffee grinder. This one's ground.
Cool.
Awesome.
No, well, thanks, Elliot and Robert. We'll really enjoy this. As a matter of fact, Tommy, I don't know how I knew, but, I always keep a kettle handy.
Yeah.
So what do you say we brew up a spot of tea here?
That sounds like a good idea.
And while we're doing that, I've got a segment here I want to share with everyone this week. We look at the radio spectrum and we see things on there, and of course we generally understand what an AM signal looks like, what a sideband signal looks like, sort of how an FM signal looks. We might not know all the little pieces on there. And then some of the newer digital technology. Put together a little segment here. We're exploring the AM and FM broadcast band and doing a little trick that I did not know was possible. So
Cool.
Today we're going to look at the AM and FM broadcast bands and some of the signals that you may encounter on there. You can see all these spikes on the spectrum display, and that's the various signals around. The closer ones, of course, are the ones that are the strongest there. We're looking at a 50 kilowatt signal right now. Down in the waterfall below, you can see the signals of the various stations as well. Looking at the auxiliary spectrum view up here, we can see right here at the carrier frequency, which is listed as 0, there's a hot spot on the waterfall. That's the lowest frequencies that are being broadcast, the lowest audio frequencies. As we head out to either left or right, we see the higher frequencies. These that are sticking way out here, those are probably something like an S, and that's on either side. This is almost 8 kilohertz on either side. That's pretty typical for an AM station. They can go out as far as 10 kilohertz.
Mississippi's most powerful news talk station. News Talk 1180 AM, 96.9 FM is WJNT Pearl Jackson. for the Biden administration. I'm Joe Chiro.
And you see where it went silent there, or you can see on this waterfall down here, there was no modulation. So there was only a carrier signal alone. We're on the FM band now, and we're looking at a signal that's fairly low compared to some of the others on the dial. You'll notice I've selected FM 8F. That's going to give us an FM baseband display, so we can see everything that's being transmitted over that frequency. Here we see the carrier at 0, and we see a signal out either side. If I were to zoom in on that, we would see that signal only goes out to a little less than 15 kilohertz. 15 kilohertz would be the highest audio frequency that an FM station is allowed to transmit. What we're seeing right here is the left plus right modulation. This station is broadcasting in mono. So this is all the signal we've got. Now let's look at a stereo station. We can see the left plus right signal right here in the center. And that goes out to, like before, right around 15 kilohertz. We see something right next to that on either side of the carrier. There's a little peak here, and that comes out to 19 kilohertz. May not be exact on my display here, but as close as I can get with the mouse. That is a stereo pilot. If a receiver sees that, it knows that it's receiving a stereo broadcast. Right here, centered out on 38 kilohertz on either side, is the left minus right signal. That's only going to be here if that stereo pilot is on and we're transmitting in stereo. That's a double sideband suppressed carrier signal. That's why we see a sideband out here on either side, but there's no carrier extending on over into the middle. The carrier is already there from the main frequency. This contains the difference information, or only the stereo information of the radio signal. Essentially, we take the left signal and flip the phase of the right signal and combine the two together. On the mono signal, or the left plus right, we just add the left and the right signals together. On the difference signal, we add them together, but we invert the phase of the right signal before we do that. What we essentially get is only the difference between the left and the right channel, and that can be used to decode the stereo information in the broadcast. Now let's look at another signal. This is a stereo signal. They're broadcasting music, and you can see the left plus right, and then 19 kilohertz either side. We've got the pilot signal, and then centered again on 38 kilohertz, we've got the difference channel, or the L-R signal. But there's one other signal right off here on the side. That's about 57 kilohertz out either side from the carrier frequency. That's used for text display on the radio. You know, some modern radios have RDS displays that'll show you information like the station you're listening to, and maybe the title and artist, or whatever they choose. Not all stations broadcast that subcarrier, as obviously we didn't see it on that other signal. There could be other subcarriers out here to the side. There are no stations in this area that are transmitting with that format now. Years ago, I had a station that transmitted, I believe it was a 76 kilohertz signal that contained the audio for music. Now we'll just look at one other signal here. This is a talk station, and so they really don't transmit stereo information. Here's the left plus right, or the mono signal. There is no stereo pilot at 19 kilohertz because we don't need it. So there's no 38 kilohertz subcarrier in here. The station is transmitting RDS data, and you can see it right there. There's a subcarrier at 57 kilohertz on either side. Now, this one is a little bit oddball right here. The first thing I notice is we've got these square subcarriers out on either side of the station. The majority of stations do not transmit an HD signal, and the HD format is only available in the United States and maybe Canada. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to ask Mike. This station is broadcasting with it, though, and what it is, it's a lot of subcarriers out here packed really tightly together that represent the different bits of a digital signal. And they can break that up into more than one audio channel if they prefer. On SDRPlay and just about most other SDR software, there's no way you can listen to this. I stumbled across a groups.io conversation. Several people got together and worked off each other's projects and came up with a command line decoder for NRSC5, which is HD radio in the US. And they compiled binaries especially to work with the SDRPlay RSP radios. So I decided I would give it a try. Here's the link to the groups.io post where you can learn more about it. The command line is NRSC5-64 for this version, followed by the frequency of the station that you want to receive, a space, and then the subchannel number. 0 is the main HD channel, which is typically going to be the same thing that's broadcast in analog. If the station has additional subchannels, they may be 1, 2, or 3. So let's just listen to the main channel here.
So much for joining us.
Hey, Michelle. Great to talk to you.
First, I want to ask you about
And
these
here we are,
rewrites.
listening to the program, same as on the analog channel, except in HD. It gives you a little information here on the decoding, the bit error rate, as well as the bit rate that's being used for this particular subchannel. Looks like, to me, they're probably using 32 kilobits per second for this particular channel. Now, if we want to listen to other channels that may be on this same station, we'll use the same command, but we'll change it to a 1. And I believe that will give us classical music, or whatever they're playing on that subchannel today. These channels are being broadcast on the same frequency as the analog channel for this station. That's all the subchannels that this particular station has. There are others, though, that might have up to 3 different channels on there. As the bit rates drop on these channels, you'll probably hear the artifacts. That's just a trade-off that they have to make between quality and how many different channels they want to have. There you go, decoding HD radio with an SDRPlay.
That's
Wow.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. I didn't know that was around, that software package. I had sort of searched before and didn't come up with anything, but I ran across that and had to try it. It works fine.
Yeah, I see that. I'll have to give it a try.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
George, I have a question. The old analog SCA channels that they used to use for like things like Muzak and that, do they still exist, or are they being replaced with digital data like RDS and some of the subchannels like for HD?
I think, well, it's probably still around there. I think radio reading services are probably still using a HD, not an HD, but just a regular analog subcarrier. Muzak, I think they went to satellites long ago. And, I'd mentioned that 76 kilohertz when that used to be on a station I was at. But I don't think there's many of those. There are some using it for paging, or it used to be. I don't know how much of that's around anymore. I didn't really see any subcarriers like that just when I was scanning here, but I didn't spend a lot of time looking for it. Do y'all have HD radio in Canada?
I think I looked a while ago, and I think the major centers have at least a station or two, but I'm out of their kind of coverage area for the most part. I could likely put up an outdoor antenna and pick up stations out of Toronto, but other than that, yeah, they're only in the major market areas.
Yeah.
Basically, the major cities. across Canada.
Yeah, what I was mostly interested in is, is that legal up in Canada? And sounds like, yeah.
Oh yeah. I think for the most part, whatever is in the U.S., we pretty much follow suit.
Yeah.
It only makes sense because of all of the border cities, and as you know, you can't. Even though you draw a line on the map, the radio signals don't know about that. So
True. Well, we've brewed up some here. I chose the English breakfast black tea.
Lavender chamomile. I've never had it, so it smells pretty interesting. It's kind of different. But I haven't tasted it yet, but I'm about to. Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it's hot.
It is very hot. That little reactor thing you've got down there, man, it's water gets hot in no time.
Oh, yeah. That thing worked too good. I can't taste it. It's so hot right now. But what I do tastes good. So,
Yeah, mine's great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate y'all sending that stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think we'll take a quick break because, Mike, you have a segment coming up here that has really piqued my interest after I watched what you had done there.
I thought it might. I know it's probably, without giving it away, I think there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of folks, a lot of viewers that are going to want to take this for a spin.
Yeah. And we'll be back and look at that in just a moment. Ameritron's ALS 1306 is a 1.5 to 54 megahertz solid-state near-legal limit FET no-tune amplifier. It's got 1200 watts PEP output on all bands, including 10 and 6 meters, instant automatic band switching, no tuning, no warm-up, and no tubes to pamper. ALS 1306's reliability is ensured by using 8 rugged MRF 150 power FETs mounted on a dual heavy-duty heatsink properly arranged to distribute heat over a large surface. Single power device amplifiers can't do that. ALS 1306 outputs up to 1200 watts of clean SSB power with just 100 watts of drive. Add an optional interface cable for your radio, and automatic band switching lets you put your amplifier and power supply out of the way. The ALS 1306 automatic band switching reads band data from your transceiver and automatically changes bands as you make adjustments on your radio. Built-in SWR protection prevents amplifier damage if you accidentally switch to a wrong band, use the wrong antenna, or have high VSWR. Overpower protection prevents forward and reflected power from exceeding safe levels. Output power is automatically reduced to prevent amplifier damage by controlling ALC to the exciter. The ALS 1306 is powered by a 50-volt DC 50-amp switching power supply which comes with a pre-wired cable. This hash-free, fully regulated switching power supply is only 12 pounds and can be placed conveniently out of the way. The power supply comes wired for 220 volts AC, but can be changed to 110 volts. It draws less than 25 amps at 110 volts or 12 amps at 220 volts. If you're looking for a modern amplifier for your ham shack, then you owe it to yourself to look at the Ameritron ALS 1306. Visit Ameritron.com today and check out the full line of the world's most popular HF linear amplifiers. That's my amplifier there, Tommy. I really like it.
Yep. Unless you go in the house before I leave.
I'm really tempted to get one of those, but I have to do something about my HF antenna arrangement first, because even with my 100 watts, when I operate, the tray opens up on my DVD player upstairs.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, you may need to do a little grounding or something around there.
Yeah, I think I've got some common mode currents floating on the coax on the shield.
Well, I really like this amp because first, it's no tune, you just turn it on and it works, and it's got automatic band switching so it can follow your radio and, automatically take care of the tuning for you. That's nice.
Makes it easier.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I don't know what else you want to give away about this before we watch it, but I'm just going to say email's missing out because he's not here to see this tonight, because I know the price is right on it.
Yeah, the price is right on it, and well, let's take a look.
Android Pie. A few episodes ago, I briefly mentioned that I had loaded custom firmware on some of my older Android phones and tablet. The Android distribution is called Lineage. Lineage came about when CyanogenMod folded, and some of the software developers got together and formed Lineage. If you head over to the lineageos.org website, you'll find all kinds of packages of Android builds for all kinds of cell phones and tablet devices. Sadly, missing from the list are Raspberry Pi devices. Fear not, if you head over to constantcang.com, you'll find several devices including the Raspberry Pi 3 and 4. Today we'll be creating a software image for the Raspberry Pi 400. Incidentally, I've read reports that the performance on the Raspberry Pi 3 is lacking, so I recommend that you stick with a Raspberry Pi 4 or 400. You should note that there are several Lineage OS builds, the latest build being Lineage OS 19, which is built on Android 12. Stick to the Android 11 build for now. You'll see why shortly. Once you click on Lineage OS 18.1, you'll see a description of the Android 11 build. I suggest that you read through the documentation located here, as it discusses what is working and what is not working. At the very least, you should read through the FAQ section, as most answers to your questions will be found here. Also, be sure to read the How to Install section carefully. These other pages discuss other options such as SSH, etc., but we won't be setting these up today. Lastly, don't forget to read or install Google Apps. Without Google Apps or GApps, you won't have the Play Store app, making things nearly impossible for most to install Android applications. Remember what I said about sticking to version 11 of Android? Here's why. At the time of making this video segment, there is no open GApps for Android 12. While version 11 of GApps may work with Android 12, you're only asking for problems if you do. Okay, once you've installed Lineage for Android on your Raspberry Pi 4 or 400, you'll end up with a landing page like this. Now I've went ahead and installed several ham radio applications, and I did this by going to the Play Store, searching for them, and then installing them. If you install an application and you receive a little warning message that says this app may not be optimized for your device, this doesn't necessarily mean that it won't run. It just likely means that it wasn't designed for, say, the device that you're using, in our case the Raspberry Pi 400 or Raspberry Pi 4, for a large screen. Some of the applications you download and install will actually have this kind of layout or display, and you can tell that they were designed and optimized for a mobile phone as opposed to say a tablet. A lot of the applications you can tell it to install or to set up in landscape mode. So you can tell it landscape mode, and it usually fills the screen pretty good. Here's an example of that. This is a typical example of an application that was originally designed for a smartphone, and a completely different aspect ratio on the screen, but you can set it up in landscape mode and it does a pretty good job otherwise. So don't be dissuaded by that error message that pops up stating that this application may not be optimized. It'll likely just run fine. Let's go back to the main home screen. Let's have a little demo of Echolink. I used Echolink and the DroidStar app on last week's AmateurLogic Soundcheck Net, and you can have a listen for yourself.
I was immune, son. But anyway, if you have any ideas, shoot me an email. The question tonight is, how often do you carry an HT with you? Would you use it instead of a cell phone when you can? Let's do some more analog check-ins. Handshake Hotline, Echolink, and All-Star and FM if you're on the repeater. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name and your location.
Victor Echo 3, Mike India Charlie, Mike in Barrie, Ontario on Echolink.
Here's DroidStar, and I used Yaesu System Fusion in P25.
Thanks, Tommy. This is George, W5JDX with AmateurLogic Sound Check Net. I'm just going to open it up to any mode. I'm not picky. It can be analog or digital, whatever you got. This is W5JDX with AmateurLogic Sound Check Net.
I'm going to skip over Blue DV Ambi for now. I didn't have the proper OTG cable adapter for my Raspberry Pi 400. Typical on-the-go cables or OTG cables have your standard USB connector on one end and then usually reduced down to either USB-C or a micro USB connector. Now the Raspberry Pi 4 and 400 have a full-size USB connector, so I need to get a hold of an adapter so that I can use my OTG cable with it. Let's have a listen to Brandmeister Hose Line. I was listening to Talk Group 3126, and there was a QSO in progress.
WBAQJZ800K. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Got you loud and clear that time. Very good audio. Not sure what the problem was. Brandmeister, I think, has been having some problems the past several days. Real weird conditions cropping up. Go ahead, Rob.
And last but not least, let's give Kiwi SDR a try.
What are you using for audio? Like microphonium and all that? Using any sort of EQing or anything like that?
Well, I just started poking around here with the EQ. The microphone here is a PR40, and I have it going directly into the SDR. No outboard audio, but I do have the coordinated universal time, 2 hours, 8 minutes, through the...
In addition to amateur radio apps, you can actually install various Office apps such as Google Gmail, the full G Suite, Docs, Sheets, Meet, Classroom, Slides, etc. Google Drive for storage. In addition to the Google apps, I've also installed Zoom for meetings, Microsoft Teams for collaboration, and Microsoft Office Suite. One last thing I wanted to show or demonstrate here is, unlike Windows where you have a shutdown key, well, actually you do have a shutdown key on the Raspberry Pi 400. And it's the F5 key, or the function 5 key. When you press it, you're presented with 4 buttons across the top of your screen. The emergency button, which obviously isn't used because this is not a phone. The power off button, the restart button, and you can also take a screenshot of the screen. So let's just go ahead and power off. And we're shutting down.
Authorized by the Department for blah blah blah.
Okay, Mike.
There was one thing I didn't mention, and I used just a USB headset with a boom mic on it for communicating.
So, just as an OS and operating on a Raspberry Pi, Is this something I want to do?
You definitely want to do it. In fact, I happened to acquire a Raspberry Pi 400, and that's what I obviously used for the segment. But it's going to be my go-to kind of mini ham station, certainly for all the digital modes. And analog works really well on it. And yeah, I got to say, out of all the operating systems that you can put on a Raspberry Pi, I'm having the most fun with this one, and that being Android, because there's a ton of apps for it.
So, other than just the ham applications, how is it as far as just a broad spectrum of?
Oh, the Google Suite works just fine. Like I said, docs and sheets. I also used it on Zoom with a webcam, with a USB webcam. It works fine. I've used it for Teams, at least on the chat anyway, with some coworkers. So it does pretty well.
Yeah, I guess.
Look at Tommy's getting all choked up about
I
it.
am. It's really good stuff there, man. Good segment.
I guess what's kind of throwing me off on it is there's no start menu button there, and I guess on Android there's not. But so you have to install the software. That's all you can do, right? Install applications on your desktop, and have your icons there, or maybe in Pages.
That's right. Yeah, basically the same experience you would get on a smartphone that's running Android.
Okay.
Yeah, or a tablet.
Yeah, I'll probably
or
run
tablet
it to a card and give it a shot anyway.
Yeah, well, you got to lose.
Just your time.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, so basically, like you had mentioned, it's essentially zero cost. If you've got a headset with a microphone on it, and obviously you'll need a USB webcam because there's no camera on the Raspberry Pi 400 or Raspberry Pi for that matter. So you need a webcam if you're using something like Zoom. But other than that, I was really surprised. Everything I plugged into, as far as USB goes, it recognized the camera just by plugging it in, and the same thing with the USB headset.
I'm gonna have to check it out a little further.
Mm-hmm.
That looks worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that because I've been curious. I've saw some stuff about you being able to run Android on it. I've never tried it.
Yeah, I had seen something about it, but until you showed us this, Mike, I wasn't expecting quite the experience you had there. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem at all. I was happy I discovered it, and I actually stumbled on it by accident, and like you, I said I got to give this a try, and yeah, I'm liking it very much, and it's probably going to stay on this Raspberry Pi 400.
Yeah, cool. Well, Tommy, you have, I don't know, this is not an email. What is this?
Yeah, this is actually a Facebook post. And I thought it was kind of interesting. From Pete Thompson, it was a Facebook post. And it says, for the 16th, this is paraphrased because it's kind of long. For the 16th consecutive year, the 3916 nets will be presenting the Santa net on, you guessed it, 3916 megahertz. Good girls and boys can talk to Santa Claus via amateur radio nightly at 7:15 p.m. Central, starting Friday, November the 26th, 2021. The Santa net will run nightly through Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2021. Pete Thompson, KE5 GGY of the 3916 net commented on the 3916 Santa net and said, Christmas time and Santa net is an exciting time on the 3916 nets. Every year we connect hundreds of children with Santa, and we're looking forward to another busy year. Youngsters can talk to Santa at the North Pole via strategically placed operators who relay the voice of Santa. And go ahead to the Facebook group and read the rest of it.
You've been kind of into
obsessed
current affairs lately here.
I have. And lots of current.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did some stuff with my batteries, found out most of my batteries were pretty much worthless. So I started the process of replacing them. In my last video, you remember that I tested my batteries and I found out most of my lead acid batteries are pretty much worthless. The only good battery that I still have is not even a lead acid. It's this LiFePO battery that I bought from Amazon for $30-something. 8 amp hour battery, and it tested for a little over 6-something amp hours, which is okay. For the price, I can't complain, and it powers my 705 just fine. Instead of buying another lead acid battery, I looked around and did some more research on these batteries, and I was going to buy a bigger one, but they were a little bit pricier, and come to find out that the battery management system, or BMS, is not that great. There are different cells in here and they need to be balanced, and the BMS in these don't balance, so after time they'll slowly drift off and you'll lose capacity of these if you get a weaker cell. To manage that, the BMS is, if you have a good one, it can deal with that. The BMS is what turned this off when I was testing it, and it got down to 11 volts or whatever in my last video. Cut the battery off to keep from damaging it. Decided I was going to make my own battery and learn a little something this time. So these are 25 amp hour 3.2 volt cells. I bought 8 of them. What I'm going to do is put 2 of these cells together, parallel them together, and I'll have a 50 amp hour 3.2 volt battery. I'll put 4 of these pairs together and make essentially a 12 volt battery. It'll top out 14 point something volts fully charged. I'll have more capacity. It costs me less money, and I'm going to learn something in the meanwhile. Plus I've got some cool features that I'll show you. I needed some bus bars to put these together. I made some out of copper pipe. I found some 1/2-inch copper pipe, the thickest I could find at Lowe's. I cut the copper pipe to fit the right length between 2 of these cells so it didn't overlap if one cell was beside the other one. I flattened it out against a piece of metal and made it just as flat as I possibly can, and then I drilled holes so they'll go together. And to parallel these, I'm just going to put them together like so. I'll turn them around, put the positive to the negative on another pair of these, and that'll give them in series until we use up all 8 cells and end up with our battery. So you'll see how it comes together. It's pretty neat. To manage this battery, we still need a BMS. I found this JBD. This BMS is a 80 amp, which is more than enough for my 50 amp battery. My BMS came with 4 leads. I put these terminals on, they didn't come with it, and I'll just double these up, so that doubles the current capacity of those wires. Came with a Bluetooth module that I can hook it up, and I can monitor my battery, set the parameters for this BMS with my phone or computer. And it's also got 2 temperature probes. One of the downsides of using the LiFePO batteries is if you charge them below freezing, you can basically ruin your batteries. So the temperature probe will cut the charging capability off of the BMS if it gets too cold, to keep from ruining your battery. Before we use these batteries, they need to be evened out. They need to be brought to a fairly high state of charge and exactly the same capacity, as close as possible. Because if one battery is low and it gets down to the cutoff voltage, the BMS will cut the entire pack off to save the one battery. Top balancing is really easy. Set your cells up in parallel. Use a heavy gauge piece of wire or your bus bars like I did. Be careful not to short anything together because you'll get a lot of arcing. Set your power supply to your desired voltage. The max charge voltage on mine is 3.65 volts, so I wanted to be under. I set mine to 3.6 volts, and I set my current on my power supply to 10 amps, and hooked up the positive lead to the positives, the negative lead to the negatives, and let it go until the amperage draw was down to almost 0, and it worked perfect. When you buy a BMS, be sure to look for the balancing feature on there. You definitely want that. When these cells get charged, they can heat up, and it causes gases in there, and these aluminum cases can swell. Right now, these cells are all perfectly flush. To keep them like that, you want to apply, some people call it compression, some places call it fixture. The manufacturer of this cell did not say to compress, but I did ask the seller, and they said that it is recommended to put a little bit of compression on there just to contain. If they swell, it's going to dramatically decrease the lifespan of the batteries. Speaking of which, they're rated for about 2,000 charge and discharge cycles. I hope these batteries will last me years and years. To compress these cells, I went ahead and I cut some wood I had. I bought some all thread, and I made some holes in it, and I've got this piece of rubber hose that I cut, that I slipped over the threads to keep them from bumping into the heat shrink that's on that cell. And these will go together, and then I'll just tighten them up a little bit just to put just a little bit of pressure on the cells just to keep them contained. Now we need to go ahead and put these together. I've got these turned around for pairs. This is going to be positive to negative, negative to positive, positive to negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's put these on the parallels right there. And that's going to give us 50 amp hour, 3.2 volt cell, four of them. So let's go ahead and hook these up in series. Let's do it this way. Positive to negative, positive to negative. This way, positive to negative. Now, we should have our battery. That should be the positive, that should be the negative. 13.22 volts. So that's good. Now, let's go ahead and put it into our little compression device here. To do that, I want to loosen these just a little. Now that's pretty tight right there. I can actually pick it up. So these are going to be our negative and our positive for our BMS. Check the documentation for your battery management system, and be sure you're careful with this wiring for both of these, because if you hook it up wrong, you'll blow your BMS. We've got to hook up the balance lead. My BMS came with this cable. There were no terminals on the end of it, just bare wires. So off camera, I went ahead and I put these terminals on, and put a little heat shrink on them. And this will plug into our BMS right here. And that's what's actually going to activate it. So let's go ahead and wire this up. The black one is the most negative. So that's going to be the very first negative right here. So be very careful. In my case, the B minus goes to the negative on the battery. These two are going to be what hooks up to your device, and then the positive lead for your device goes to the positive on your battery, the most positive. So let's go ahead. These two are going to need to go here on these two negatives. The black one goes here as well. Okay. Then the very next one is the first positive. So this will be positive number one, which will be the same one on the cell that we had before. And I'm going to go ahead and put it on this one because I've got this extra bus bar here. It doesn't matter which one of these two you put it on, just as long as it's on there. So double check it and triple check it. We're going to check it with the meter in just a moment too. So that's the next one. The very next white one is going to go to the next cell, positive. So that'll be right here. And I'll put it on the one that doesn't have the extra bus bar on it, just so there's more room. The third one is going to go to the third cell, cell number 3, which is going to be the next wire in line right here. 1, 2, 3. And this will be this cell. So it's going to go over here on the positive lead of this one. And finally, the last one, the red one, is the one that's actually going to power the device, and it's the main one for it. So it's going to actually go on the next positive, which will be right here. Okay, so this is our negative. Double check our wiring. Let's get our meter out and check this plug. So we know that black one was the most negative. So let's go ahead and pull this over here where we can see. Turn the light on so you can see. We'll put the negative here. Check the next one. Should have 3 point something volts, and it does. The next one should be 3 more volts. 6. Next one should be 9 something, and then the last one should be our full voltage, 13.23. If I check here, 13.23. So that's right. Let's hook up the Bluetooth module. All the BMSs don't come with a Bluetooth module, but this one did. I particularly wanted it so that I could manage it and monitor the voltage of it. Plus the cool factor is way up there. So we'll go ahead and plug that on right there. Actually, I may put it right there. I think I like that a little better. You don't want to hook this BMS up directly to the battery because this generates a good bit of heat, and that heat can damage your battery. So that's why I was going to put it either on the outside of there, or I think I'm actually going to put it right here. It looks like I can probably wire tie it around these two posts here easy enough. But we'll deal with that in a few minutes. I bought a little terminal block. These will go to the black. I'll screw these down over here, and then I'll have something that I can actually hook my device up to. I'm probably going to use my MFJ power strip that you've seen me use in the past. For the positive side, I bought this battery cable. It will go to the red terminal block that I bought. Now that one will go there, and this one will hook up over here. That's going to work well. Now this one will go here. I should have all my voltage right there, 1323. And this is where I'll hook up my devices, and this is where I'll charge. Now these temperature probes need to be put on. I've got some Captain tape, which is non-conductive tape that they use for batteries a lot. You've seen it's kind of a gold looking clear cellophane. That'll be used to secure the temperature probes. Okay, I went ahead off camera and I tied down the BMS and everything, and I got the Bluetooth app installed on my phone. You can see that I've got the Bluetooth module on and paired. There are a lot of settings in here. We'll capacity test this thing and go through some of the other settings in a later video. But I just want to kind of get it built. It's quite a few steps in it, but if you're careful and you follow the instructions, it's really easy. You can save yourself some money, and you've got a more serviceable battery. If one of these cells goes bad, I can swap one cell out. If they're out of balance, I can balance them myself to make sure that I'm getting the maximum capacity. Whereas on these pre-made batteries like this, if they get out of balance, there's really not much I can do about it. It's a lot better option in the long run. 73.
I want to know more about that battery pack, but we need to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
I want to learn more about it. Spice up your ham shack with ICOM's IC705. This portable radio is perfect for staying in or venturing out and working your favorite bands this winter season. Happy holidays from ICOM. The IC705 is the perfect sidekick and QRP companion. Base station features and functionalities at the tips of your fingers in a portable package, covering HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at just under 2 pounds with RF direct sampling for most of the HF bands and IF sampling for frequencies above 25 MHz. 4.3-inch color touchscreen with live band scope and waterfall. 5 watts output with battery pack BP272 or 10 watts with external 13.8 volt DC. Single sideband CW, AM, FM, as well as full D-Star functions. Micro USB connector, Bluetooth, and wireless LAN connectivity. Integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger. Micro SD card slot. Speaker microphone HM243 comes standard, and it supports QRP and QRPP operations. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the optional backpack. LC192 has a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for soda activations or a day out in the wild. Our family of favorite ICOM amateur radios are available this holiday season. The IC9700, IC9300, and IC7610 base stations, ID52A handheld coming soon, and the ID5100A mobile, and it's the most wonderful time of the year to give the gift of ICOM. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information on all the great ICOM radios. And thanks ICOM for sponsoring Amateur Logic. Boy, wouldn't you like to have one of those under your tree?
I would like to. I'm actually looking forward to that ID52 coming out too. Should be soon, I hope.
Yeah, I think so. So, more on that battery pack there. What gave you the inspiration to venture down that trail?
Well, I didn't have any batteries, and I started looking at options. And instead of buying one, the BMS is what did it mainly, because if one of those batteries gets low for some reason, it gets weak, the BMS, they go down, the BMS is going to cut the whole battery off just to save that one cell. and you lose capacity. I think that's what's happened to my little 8 amp one I had already. And I wanted to be able to replace the cell if one went bad and work on it myself or rebalance it and so forth. So got looking at it and I decided to go that route and do the kind of the DIY thing. That's what we do anyway, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. So do you think you'll get a whole field day out of one?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I may have to charge it up, overnight when I go to sleep or something. But I did run the whole net on it. I had the rig on pretty high power, and I talked on it for 3 hours, and it barely made a dent in it.
Cool.
So anyway, I would probably like to have one with a little bit more capacity, but the 50 amp hours is going to do me pretty good. I may build a bigger one later.
Yeah. Cool. Or just build another one of those.
In the absence of our cost compliancy officer, is it cost compliant?
Well, I think it's not too bad for what I got. I could have gotten a cheaper BMS, but I wanted the programmable one. I bought a smart one, so I can set the settings with the Bluetooth app on my phone. But I got about $125, I think, in the cells roughly. And then my BMS was about $50, but you can get a BMS much cheaper. But like I said, I went ahead and paid extra for that one because I wanted to do the experimentation with it.
Well, like you mentioned, if you have a cell that goes bad or whatever, you can just replace the bad cell. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be able to do that with a even that little LiPo battery that you bought or the LiFePO battery that you bought. You'd probably have to ruin the battery to take it apart to get at the BMS.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't balance those cells. Some people on the internet have tore those apart and checked them, and they lack some features. They don't have, a lot of them don't have the cold protection. Some of them don't really balance well or at all. Some things like that. So I wanted to go ahead and do a nice one. Kind of tired of buying batteries. I'm hoping this one's going to last a long time, like I mentioned in the segment.
A lot more complicated than those batteries that they made on Gilligan's Island with the coconut.
I know. Well, I couldn't get anybody to pedal the bike with the palm fronds on it.
Yeah. Well, even when you did, it took forever to charge. So,
yeah, true.
And then not many ampere hours per Gilligan. Well, that's pretty neat, Tommy. I'm going to have to check that out because I don't know what email will say, but yeah, I think it's kind of cost compliant when you think about the capacity you got.
If you look at the batteries that are pre-made, it actually is. Mm-hmm. So if you get a pre-made one, 100 amp hour, it's going to cost you about $400 something roughly, depending on what you get. And then you're not going to have a serviceable battery.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
I like that part.
Yeah. Mike, sorry we didn't have any tea for you.
Oh no, that's all right. I know exactly what you're drinking, and that brand is top notch. This is a unsolicited endorsement, but Bigelow's is good tea.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm thoroughly enjoying this. This was an email. Okay. And this came from Rick Stratman. He said he found a motorized lightning disconnect switch. Very cool, probably very expensive. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how expensive this would have been to build. On the left-hand side, you see the coax connectors come into those little blocks.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are surge suppressors or what those are, but he's just using them here as the female sockets. And at the bottom, right below the SO239s, you see there's a Jones plug there. That's going to be for the rotor connections, if you got a rotator. On the right-hand side, PL259s, and it's got the push-on type of PL259 adapter on. You remember those back in the CB days? You could get those, and you just just kind of push them over the PL259. You didn't have to screw it down.
I don't remember those.
All that's mounted on the aluminum plate there, and you can see the plate is sitting on that
couple
looks
of drawer slides.
drawer slides.
Uh-huh.
So you know it's going to come in line and it's going to match up when it slides across. And then they've just got an inexpensive linear actuator. So I don't know that when you think about what it does, I don't know that this is that expensive. A lot of hours putting it together, I'm sure. And yeah, some money, but not as much as a commercial product. Haiti Mill is not here because he was working on that one that his buddy had designed. I hadn't heard anything else about it. That's a handy way to disconnect your antennas for lightning protection. You know, I built something a number of years ago now. It's just, you know, that heavy-duty MFJ rotary switch.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a cool project.
Got a servo.
Servo motor.
Yeah. And a homemade
That was a good one.
Arduino.
I'm a casual operator, so when I'm finished using my radio, I just automatically disconnect the antenna lead.
Yeah.
And I have a long, I think it's from Red Lobster. It looks like a lighthouse. It's a glass, very thick glass, and I put the ends of the coax in there just in case it happens to arc.
Yeah, I don't even think about it. I just turn off my radio and I hear it zzz, servo.
Probably sounds natural now.
Yeah, it's not giving you the separation that device would give there, but you know, my antennas there's trees around here taller than my antennas, so I'm not that worried about it. So, and I haven't had any issues. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, I got shrubs taller than my antenna. It's with last storm that came through, it kind of dropped down a few rungs on the tree out there, so I got to work on it again.
Wow.
I was away on I think it was training, and there was a wicked thunderstorm that went on. I was talking to my wife on the phone. I think it was down in Toronto, and I guess what she described to me was lightning bolts going across the backyard.
Oh,
and
wow.
We've got taller trees too, but they actually struck the neighbor's shed and set it on fire. They had to call the fire department to put it out.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you're safe just because you have tall trees around. Certainly wasn't the case in this particular case.
Yeah. Well, it helps. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt anything to have something taller around.
Yep.
Well, the ideal thing is if you have a neighbor with a great big taller tower, taller TV tower than you have.
Yep.
And if you fall within that cone of protection, that's kind of a bonus.
Well, yeah, that's kind of my situation too. My 2-meter tower is higher up than my HF antennas, and I have gotten a strike on it before years ago. That's when
I remember that.
Yeah, I discovered that the electrical service coming into my house wasn't grounded.
Yeah, I remember that's when you had the burn marks on your desk and all that.
Yeah, there's still burn marks on the side of that filing cabinet and that desk up there.
I remember that.
Yep. Well, I think that's going to about give us a full show for tonight. All three topics were pretty interesting, I thought.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's good. I think it's a good show.
Yep. Anything in particular we want to mention on the way out the door?
Don't forget about the net I mentioned from the Facebook group. So every Tuesday night at that's the wrong slide,
isn't it?
8 p.m. Central or 0200 UTC.
Snap your fingers.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. We even gained some nodes.
Yes, magic. I'm not going to snap them again because then the net will last like 6 hours. But anyway, join us on Tuesday night if you have some free time. I don't think you'll regret it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. You know, tonight I'm wearing my superhero uniform.
Shirt.
Yeah. This was Homebrew Heroes, the award I won for 2020, and I want to thank those guys for selecting me for that, and all the sponsors that sent out some really nice prizes. I've been getting some good use out of the Siglin oscilloscope like the one that you've got, and also the Analog Discovery Kit. I've got to show more about that. That is
Yeah.
One neat deal there. But yeah, thanks to those guys. Homebrewheroes.org is where you can learn more about it. And they're about to award the 2021 Homebrew Hero Award.
I guess they haven't announced it yet.
They haven't announced it yet. I don't know who's was in the running this year. I didn't know I was in the running last year, but that's coming up real quick. So keep an eye out for that. Somebody's going to be really happy, and it'll be somebody you've probably heard of before.
Yeah, most likely. So, I'll have to watch and see who it is. I'm interested to find out.
But if you don't win, and you're not like the dean over here, and you've got on the colors, where could
you might want some colors.
Yeah, where could you pick up some?
Well, it's funny that you ask. You can go right here to shop.spreadshirt.com/AmateurLogic. You can get shirts, caps, mugs, similar to the ones that we've got here that we've been drinking out of, Ham College or Amateur Logic. And there's backpacks, lots of different things on there. So check it out. You might find something you like.
Cool.
It's almost time to start your Christmas shopping, too. So good place to get something for your ham friends.
Yeah. And if you'd like to catch up with us throughout the month and find out what's going on, well, there's a good place you can do that. Of course, we mention this every time around. We got a Facebook group, facebook.com/group/AmateurLogic.TV.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. Follow us on Amateur Logic or at Amateur Logic on Twitter. That's better.
We've got a MeWe group.
MeWe.com/join/AmateurLogic.TV.
And
Emil, you get the Groups IO one.
He's not here.
Groups IO/G/AmateurLogic.
Yep. So check into some of those groups. We know not everybody likes Facebook. I don't know about all this meta stuff that's going on, but I don't really care.
Same here.
In between Ham College and AmateurLogic.TV, we've been trying to post AmateurLogic.TV shorts on the YouTube channel, and it got to be 11 minutes long, and I thought, oh, this is too long for a short, and I don't know if I can wait to tell everybody about it, so I decided to do it as a segment for tonight.
I think it worked fine as a segment on Amateur Logic, and we're not posting shorts every week now. If you may have noticed, we still do them from time to time, so check those out as well. But we kind of got off the every week schedule on those.
Yeah, but if you want to be notified when we have them, they're only on the YouTube channel, so you'll need to subscribe to be notified when they do come out.
Yep. Tommy, any final thoughts before we go?
No. Those in the U.S., have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll see you for Ham College at the end of the month.
Yep. Sounds good to me. We'll see you at the end of the month. Enjoy your turkey if you can get one this year. Have you had Thanksgiving yet, Mike? What y'all do at a different time?
We have, yeah. Ours is we had ours a couple of weekends ago.
It's in
ours
October.
Is in October.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that is if it generally we're getting off pretty easy this year. Generally, we'd be getting out the snow shovels by now and having to use those and scrape cars and our car windshields off and everything else. So I'm kind of glad our Thanksgiving is in October when it's still a little bit more seasonable, rather than the cold temperatures that we're having now.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, join us end of the month for Ham College and the middle of next month for, I guess it'll be the Christmas episode of Amateur Logic. So we've got to get something together. We haven't really discussed that yet, but we like to have something special every year for the Christmas episode. So join us there.
I was thinking about that very thing tonight.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, man.
Yeah. 7-3, everyone.
7-3, everybody.
7-3.
And email, get feeling better soon. And
since Emil's not here, if folks have a project idea or whatever, you can send them to Emil at AmateurLogic.TV.
Okay. All right. I'm sure he's going to appreciate that, Mike. I'm glad you threw that in there.